Welcome to another episode of Talkin Smash podcast powered by JOOLA. I'm Matt Hetherington, and here today with me is Liam Pitchford. Good to have you with us here in DC. Liam, obviously you've been ranked as high as number 12 in the world, team medalist at the World Champs, the World Cup, European top 16 bronze medalist, 4-time Olympian, 2-time gold medalist at the Commonwealth Games, so plenty of career accolades. Just
sounds better here, isn't it?
Yeah. Just giving you a good pump up to start things off. So today's podcast, I wanted to talk more with you about how your training habits and how your preparations for matches kind of evolved over your career. I think it's kind of an area that a lot of people don't really consider that much. You know, sometimes your environment changes, your level of competition changes, the stage of your playing career changes, and a lot of people just continue training the same way. Yeah. So I wanted to try and get some insight into how things might have changed. So obviously you started playing in the UK around 8 years old?
Yeah, around 8 or 9 started like properly, kind of.
Yeah. When did you actually start? What?
About 8.
Okay.
And then I sort of took it up around 9 or 10, like a bit more serious.
And you said to me in the beginning you were playing tennis as well.
Yeah, I used to play tennis at like county level in England. So, I mean, I was pretty young, like 10, 11.
So I guess in the beginning stages, what did your development look like in the UK at that time? I think also aside from the training habits, one thing that I wanted to ask you, which is, I guess, important for a lot of people to hear more about, and I don't know the answer yet, but how involved were your parents in that process when you started playing table tennis? This is like an area of contention that people don't really talk about that much.
Yeah.
So start with what the training looked like, and then...
So basically when, up until sort of around 12, I was playing tennis and I was playing table tennis.
Until 12?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Quite late. I was playing like, obviously I think around 10 or 11, I got scouted for the younger age groups in table tennis. So I was doing both at the same time, pretty much until about 12, and then my parents, obviously, I wasn't from like a wealthy, or that wealthy, like we were, middle class. My parents said, look, you need to choose which one.
Can't keep paying for both.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And at the time, I just enjoyed table tennis more. Like the social side for me was, I had a lot more friends there. Tennis was a little bit elitist, and I didn't, it's very individual, and I kind of felt on my own. I was like, okay, I don't enjoy it. Like, I'll go for table tennis. And, after that, I kind of moved on to like a local club, started getting one-to-one coaching, was going then to, under 13, under 15 England training camps, like a weekend a month kind of thing. So I gradually got better and better practice.
How often would you say you were playing, like when you were still playing tennis, how often were you playing table tennis? Were you kind of splitting between both?
Yeah, no, I was...
And you only started working with the coach after you decided we're doing table tennis? No,
I was so where I grew up in Chesterfield, like I was doing one-to-ones with a coach when I sort of decided that I want to play table tennis. That's obviously it was fairly expensive, so doing both at the same time, that's why I kind of had to choose. And then, sorry, I can't remember.
Got him. No, so what I'm the main focus is like how your actual development changed. I mean, obviously in the beginning, like when you're 8, 9 years old, you're focusing a lot on basics, right? It's a lot of repetition, basic stuff.
I mean, I was sort of getting one-to-ones still when I was young, where I grew up in Chesterfield, and then made the decision to stop playing tennis, and then I was obviously going to getting more recognition, at tournaments in table tennis in England, and sort of playing for under 13 teams for England in a few tournaments, and then sort of we had a national centre in Sheffield at the time, so around I was sort of 13, 14, so I was at secondary school still, leading up to my GCSEs or O levels or whatever they're
called here,
wherever.
SATs.
Really.
How about SATs in the US?
I don't know. So when you're 16, you sit.
He's looking at me for answers. I don't know.
So it was sort of like I was 13, 14, and like 4 times a week I was kind of, finishing school. Luckily, the centre was in Sheffield, so it was only like half an hour away from. Okay. So after school, I'd go there, practice. And at the start, I was sort of just practicing with the women's team or like with the juniors and cadets that were there. Obviously, we hadn't moved up to be able to practice with the seniors at that point yet. And then, I was doing that for like a year or two, and it got to a point, like obviously, the likes of Paul, Darius at the time were still juniors, but, were making a mark in table tennis, and Gav, and they were all obviously living in Sheffield full time. And I just remember my mum she laughs all the time, I was kind of coming down every morning and go, I don't want to go to school, I want to train full time, I'm losing out on time, every day.
My parents would have been shocked if I'd said that to them.
Yeah, and I was always trying to fake that I was ill and stuff, and not go. I was like, no, I want to go practice. I need to go to practice. Otherwise, I'm never going to make it as a top player.
So too sick for school, but not for training.
No, and my mum was kind of like, you need to sit your GCSEs, and then you can decide. We're not going to stop you. You'd be sick. I was 16, when I sat them, and they said, okay, you can decide.
Do you think that was important for you to have parents that were kind of, I guess, just letting the process play out and then saying, if you want to make that decision, then make that decision? Did you, I mean, obviously I don't know your parents, but how involved were they when you're at the club? Or when you were training, or in this whole process?
When I was training, they just left me to it. Obviously,
that's the answer I was looking for.
Yeah, and
my parents were exactly the same.
Yeah, and I think them, or my mum, is making me finish my GCSEs probably made me want it more. So when I did go full time, I was kind of I kind of felt like I needed to catch up. So I did more. If that makes sense.
Well, for me, it does, because I went through school in an area where table tennis was horribly weak. I mean, I was playing with 70-year-olds twice a week, and by the time I got to university, and it was this is a place you can actually practice 4 to 5 times a week with decent players. I was like, what do I have to do to make up for the last 10 years of slow training?
I mean, that's kind of how I felt, because I was still leading up until 16. I was playing for England on the 15, winning European youth medals and stuff like that. But up until 16, I was still only practicing 4 or 5 times a week, a couple of hours. So maybe 10, 12 hours a week. Yeah. And then the other players, doing full time and practicing twice a day. So I kind of felt like I need to do more. I want to do more, and I know it doesn't work like that necessarily. Different people obviously progress at different rates, but I think my parents they were never pushy or whatever. My dad used to drive me to tournaments, but the only time he cared was when I used to get angry and used to break bats and stuff, and then he'd
going the same way as the PlayStation controllers.
Give me a bit of a telling off. But
don't think I ever did that.
No, I used to be a hothead, but I've calmed down a lot, unless it's FIFA. Then controllers get thrown.
Yeah.
But they really sort of just let me do my thing, like, let it play out. When I decided, so leading up to London 2012, obviously we had a lot of funding from the government, and after that we lost it. So we knew we had a good centre leading up to that. We had Chinese practice partners, like 2 or 3 living there full time. We had, it was perfect, like hall to ourselves, like everything was good. And obviously then when we knew we were going to lose it, I kind of needed to have not a backup plan, but kind of I needed to do something, like take initiative really, and then obviously the opportunity came to move to Germany and play in Bundesliga.
Yeah. How old were you?
So I was
when you moved. You played Belgian league before.
No, so I played a year in second league in Germany.
Oh, I feel like I've asked you that question before and mentioned Belgium for no reason whatsoever, and you're like, no,
I've never played in Belgium.
Yeah.
So I played a year in second Bundesliga and was kind of in Oxhausen, sort of a week, 2 weeks every now and then, but not living there really. We still had the centre in Sheffield at the time, so the practice was good there. I enjoyed it. So it made sense. And then once we didn't have the centre, it was sort of around leading up to the 2011 season, so midway through 2011, that I moved. So I was coming up to I don't even know. I'm not very good at maths. I was actually all right at maths at school, but it's been a while. I think I was leading up to my 18th birthday.
Around 18?
Yeah. So I think I was 17 when I actually moved abroad to Germany. My mum wasn't sure, about letting me go, but obviously knew that it was my decision. It was what I wanted to do. Then the first couple of years were tough. Like, I'd never been away from sort of family or home really. I'd obviously been travelling, to play junior tournaments and stuff, but.
Do you think it also fueled you a little bit, like when you do get that opportunity to go, and people that are close to you are not completely sure about whether it's the best move? Did you feel that also fueled you a little bit, where like, I have a limited amount of time to prove that this is the right decision as well? Yeah,
I think so, a little bit. I think it wasn't like I wanted to prove that it was a good decision. I just kind of I'd already made my mind up, and I was already on the plane. I was kind of. But once when I was a young guy at the time, and out there, it was a very small village. It was it was only table tennis, and it was perfect at the time. Like, I was in the hall like 3 times a day, 3 sessions a day, just learning what I could. And then slowly and steadily started improving. And
so I was going to ask, I had it kind of pinned more around 15 and 16, because it's kind of when you started to catch more results, a little bit international even as well. And I was kind of wondering what the biggest changes were in how you approached your training and match preparation from that initial learning stage and that time that you spent in the UK, obviously like building up towards leaving, being in Germany. Like, you move overseas, you move from it's a completely different environment. What's like what are the first things that really hit you of this is completely different and this is shifting the way that I approach the game the most?
I think, obviously in England when I was young, we had an actual good setup. We don't have that now, but back then we did. We had 2 coaches with us every day. We had 2 or 3 sparring partners at least in the hall. There was 8 to 10 players obviously that were pushing each other. So we had obviously I grew up in a good environment in England. Like, it wasn't like the kids now that they don't have that structure. So I can't really complain. Like, obviously we had Chinese coach, so I learned very pretty much obviously just to have a basic setup really. Like just have that solid base. First of all, know how to move well.
Technical foundations.
Yeah, technical foundations, and so that's what I kind of then, when I left, was able to build on a little bit more to understand, different ways of playing, or properly find my game, how I wanted to sort of
evolve.
Yeah, no, and just sort of explore like what I could do different. I knew I had.
All right, you had the base. What can you change?
Yeah. Like, how do I want to play table tennis? Like, that feels the best for me, and I kind of did that abroad. Obviously, having the Chinese coach I love the guy to death. I still see him, I still work with him. He still lives in England. But it was, kind of one way. Everyone needs to play the same. Or it was when I came along, he'd already kind of was a little bit softer. So he kind of let me do my thing.
Get away with more.
Not play as many forehands as the other boys and stuff like that. But no, and obviously when I went to Germany and different coaches, sort of European coaches, I learned there was other ways, to play and how to work and develop yourself. And when you're young, you have to spend countless hours on the table. It's not necessarily, you need that. Yeah, you just need that base. Like it's just repetition, like you say, and you have to do it. Otherwise, like, you need those hours when you're young.
Yeah.
As you mature and you grow and a little bit more about the game, then it's more about the finer details, trying to find the 1%. Like, 1% extra can be massive in these, at the top level. Like, that's what I learned as I then explored more, as I grew, got higher in the world rankings, and I was looking for more, like, what do I need to do, and talking to different people and finding a way to get that extra that I needed, whether it be in tight moments or even just in practice. And it took a while, a long time to find it. It's not like a quick fix.
Yeah. I think also, so you mentioned about the technical focus being really solid. Do you think at the time that you moved to Germany, do you feel like you'd exhausted or you'd kind of utilized most of what was available to you in the UK at that time? And how important do you think that is in terms of, like, if a player's going overseas, how important is it for them to have completely, like, maxed out everything that's around them?
I don't think you need to max out everything just to make a change. Like, sometimes you just need to make a change. You can't get any more out of your environment. It doesn't mean you've exhausted everything.
Right.
Like, I made the choice to go because I knew we weren't going to have a centre anymore. Like, there literally was nowhere.
No choice.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I need to go. Like, that was how it was.
Kind of framing it in the sense of, like, obviously me growing up in New Zealand, not many players go overseas, and I know a lot of players that kind of practice like 3 times a week, and they're like, I want to go overseas, and it's like, well, are you doing all of this physical training that you should be doing? Are you making sure that you get enough match play? And it's like, are you really going to get the most out of going overseas if you're not even using what's around you now?
Yeah.
So did you feel, when you moved, did you feel like you'd really, like, kind of taken on as much as you could at that point?
Probably, yeah. I think, I was still young, so, like, there was still room to develop for me, I think it's just a mindset, really. Like, for me, it helped going abroad because I think it changed something in my mind. Like, I was comfortable living at home. Like, it was easy. I'd go to practice. I'd practice hard, but then I'd go back home. Like, it was almost like
comfortable.
Yeah, I was going abroad. I was living on my own in a totally alien country. Didn't speak the language. I knew that I had to do something, that if I wanted to to keep going at it. I needed to get the results. I needed to improve. And going from England to then to Germany, I went into the hall and I was like, okay, I'm probably the worst player in the hall now. Like, and I hate losing. I didn't want to be the worst player in the hall.
You don't want to be that guy. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, usually halfway through I have a break segment. I've done some interesting ones before. I thought this one would be fun. We're going with a pirate ship crew this time. So you have to pick these people. You can be from your...
Anyone?
Yeah, they can be
teammates
from the English team. They could be training partners in the clubs, people you played with before. You have to choose your captain. I mean, you can throw yourself in there as well. So you might fancy yourself as a captain. Your captain, your navigator, your lookout, who's going to be up the land spotter,
right.
The helmsman, who's steering the ship, and then the cook.
Right. That's going to be tough.
We'll start. I don't want to make these too easy. We'll start with the captain. That might be the easiest one.
Captain. Got to go Paul Drinkle.
Drinkle's the captain?
Yeah, got to be. He's always been the captain. He says he's given me the reins now, but he's still the captain. Everyone knows
he's
it.
Not accepting the handover of duties. All right, yeah, that's a good choice, I think.
Yeah, he's
team captain.
Yeah,
experience.
Old soul, isn't he?
I can't speak to him. I haven't spent that much time with him. I don't want to be. All right, the navigator.
Navigator.
Yeah.
Can't go Dave Macbeth because he's awful at directions.
Really?
Like the worst. Navigator.
Thank God for GPS.
Yeah. Good old Google Maps.
I guess.
Navigator.
How would you quantify navigator into table tennis? I didn't really think that out before.
No.
Good sense of direction. You could make it a metaphor. Maybe someone who has a good sense of direction just in life in general. Someone who's got their head screwed on. Quite hard to come by.
That's any of my friends. I'll put myself there. Navigator.
All right. Yeah, it sounds like you knew what you wanted from the get-go.
Yeah.
Right. Which way's up and down? Left, right? You got your...
Yeah. North.
All right, you'll do. I don't know which way.
Got the compass out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go. All right, lookout.
Lookout.
So I'm not going to pick anyone who needs to go to Specsavers.
Yeah. I'm going to go Dave Macbeth for that. He's tall.
That's a good shout.
Yeah.
All right, the helmsman.
Steering the ship. Not going Canuck Jar because he shouldn't have a driving licence.
Didn't you get that recently? It's quite recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, don't go in the car with him. I've experienced it. Helmsman. Can't be Tom Jarvis, he's just as bad.
Birds of a feather.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tough one. I don't know who to go for because
he's just good at calling out people who are bad at driving.
Exactly, yeah.
Doesn't know anyone who's good.
I mean, I would say put Walkie in there. He does a lot of miles.
All right. Yeah, is he? Who drives the golf cart when you guys go golf karting? You all have your own, or you don't walk around the course, do you?
Yeah.
You walk?
Yeah.
No golf cart?
Well, sometimes, but
who drives the golf cart?
Whoever's closest to the... what do you think we are, athletes, mate? You carry your bag, man.
Okay. All right, so Walker's the helmsman.
Go Walker. He does a lot of miles, and
I'm terrible at golf, and the few times that I've been on the golf course, I've usually I'll shoot the first couple of holes and then give up. I'm literally spending more time pissing about in the golf cart than...
It's pretty fun to drive a golf cart.
So if you have a Bluetooth speaker in it, it's good.
We don't have them fancy ones like they do over here in America.
The last one is the cook.
The cook.
When you've lived with other table tennis players before, what's usually the
ordering.
I feel like I've asked the wrong question. Yeah. Tripped.
No, when I lived in Germany, we used to obviously get food at the hotel that was a sponsor.
Okay.
I want to say he's not really playing anymore. Gav Evans was. He can cook a little. He likes to think he's an old soul. We're the same age, but he'd think he's about 20 years older. We'll go in.
All right.
Tom's all right. I'll give him a shout. He can.
All right. Maybe assistant chef.
Yeah, he can be a sous chef, Tom.
Yeah. All right. So Drinkle for the captain.
Yeah.
You're the navigator.
Yeah.
Macbeth's in the lookout.
Yeah.
Walkie's on the wheel, and then Gav and
Tom in the kitchen. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that actually.
Would you actually want to be on that ship though?
Yeah.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah. There's a few bottles of rum there.
Yeah, I think there'd need to be quite a few. I think. All right, that was good.
Big piss.
How would you picture like the daily dynamics of that ship?
just be pissed off and everything.
Maybe not even left the dock. not even out on the sea.
Someone's probably been thrown overboard as well. Probably Tom for talking so much.
Okay, all right. Brilliant. Got a couple more questions. So as you started kind of getting a lot more competitive internationally, you started to get more high-level wins. I remember quite early, well, relatively early on, the European Championships. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say maybe 2012 maybe, or 13. You beat Smirnoff and Samsonov.
Earlier.
Is it 9?
No, later.
10, 11, 11.
Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
I was close.
Got there.
Yeah, I do remember that. Like, was quite a breakout for you. When like those are quite big, especially Samsonov back then.
Yeah.
And then obviously you have quite a good record against Harimoto. You beat Marlong in Bulgaria, which I still owe you a beer for.
Yeah. I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me.
So once you kind of, you talked about looking for that 1%. Once you started to capture those higher level results, what were the most important changes, not just in the training hall, but in how you actually approached matches? Like how you prepared once you got into the hall, all these like small details, kind of, I guess, okay, obviously I didn't have any wins against any players of that caliber, but the way that you prepare for matches changes. Obviously, like in the beginning, you're very focused in practice, but not always that disciplined when you go to tournaments. But obviously, that probably has to change quite a lot.
Yeah, no. I think the way I sort of approached matches was quite similar up until it got to a point where I thought, I'm kind of almost stuck in the mud here. Like I don't feel like I'm progressing, I'm not getting to where I want to be, and then I made sort of a decision that I needed to work with, psychologists, people outside of table tennis to try and help me. But up until like when I was younger, it was almost like, I've got nothing to lose, just go and play. Like, when I beat Samsonov, he was top 10 in the world at the time. It was my first top 10 win. I was like probably 18, I think, just. Yeah. Obviously started to get a bit more recognition after that, and I think from then up until sort of probably like 20s, probably leading up to Rio Olympics, it was kind of like I felt like I was just doing my thing. I was playing well, but not necessarily, I was always kind of that play, I had the talent, but I wasn't that consistent, and kind of by the time I didn't really realise, like, I was kind of just, I was still doing my training, I was living in Germany and whatnot, and then obviously things, for one reason or another, leading up to Rio got tough. I've spoke about it openly on, in Esquire and big magazines, and I think after that it was, I mean, it took a while obviously to recover and find my way, but I got to 2017 and I was kind of like, you know, I sat down and I was like what am I doing? Like, I'm not getting where I want to be. Like, I know I can, but it's just not, like, there's something not working. Like, and I kind of sat down with the guys at Table Tennis England, and we sorted out sort of a psychologist, mental coach kind of thing that I started working with, and then I started to explore, you know, different things, how to find that 1%, what I need to do differently, like in my preparations and even when I'm practicing. So then I started to understand more about, you know, how to actually prepare to win and how to actually go into a game like properly ready. Like, it was the first time, you know, leading up to the 2018 year that I'd felt like, okay, I'm prepared. Like, I know what I need to do. Okay, you know, I'm not going to win every match, but like, I could come off and say, okay, the other guy was better than me today. It wasn't like, you know, I've come off many a time and gone, how have I lost? Like, it's just me. Like, I've lost it. Like, and yeah, 2018 was the best year of my career.
So far.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean,
we're waiting for you to beat Malong again.
Yeah.
So
maybe.
The interesting thing for me about that is, if you look back in hindsight, would you say that 1% that you were looking for was mostly psychological?
For me, yeah, 100%. Like, I mean, 1,000,000%. Like, I think I've always had the, you know, the talent, like, game-wise to be able to beat everybody. Like, that's not me being like big-headed or whatever. Like, that was just the fact. It was always mental for me, like either concentration-wise or nerves or you know, not being able to get over the line or, you know, that kind of thing. And once I actually started working on that properly and understanding how to control it, and, you know, even, you know, anger stuff in the past, until then, like, I hadn't really done enough work on it to fully understand myself, I think. Once I did that, it was almost a different, like, I felt like I couldn't lose. Like, obviously, you know, I did, but I actually felt, you know, I was going on the table thinking I can't lose, like, and it's a strange feeling. Not a strange, it's a good feeling. But.
So, yeah, that's kind of like a good. You can see like the divides of like early technical foundations, like how things have changed. Obviously, this year even. Before or during Manchester for the contender event, you had injury, which fortunately you managed to get through and get to Paris for the Olympics. Dealing with that, has that now also changed anything about how you prepare for events and how you train? Do you focus more now on physical therapy kind of stuff or injury prevention as well? Is that more important now than it was before?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm getting on a little bit now. You know, I'm in my 30s, so I can definitely feel it. But no, this year was obviously, I mean, this year leading up to Paris and even the year before was just ridiculous. It was just stupid schedule. Like it was.
It's like, a lot. I think I was talking to someone and they'd played 24 events.
It was just too much. And like, obviously everyone's chasing the ranking points because,
it's Olympic year. Yeah.
It's Olympic year, you know.
Do you think that also like that quantity, like that frequency of events, and I guess like the plastic ball's been around for so long now, but the ABS ball is a little bit more physically intensive. Do you think it makes top athletes more injury prone than?
Yeah, like you see it more and more. Like, you can't play that many tournaments. It's just not feasible anymore if you want to stay fit. Like, I mean, like,
you can't play your best.
Yeah, you can't. You
don't have the capacity.
It's just
to play
not possible. Like, and people, I don't think people see that. Like, you know, you go to, it's just not possible to be at your best. You know, week after week after week, just, you know, going from one side of the world to the other, like constantly, like, and that, it took its toll. Like, I think I'd been at home like maximum 40, 50 days in the year, like the last year. It was like, you know, some ridiculous stat, and like, I was like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, I need time to practice. I need time to be in the gym and do actual proper either rehab or, you know, a fitness program. Like, like, you do stuff when you're on the road, but it's just trying to maintain. Like, you don't have time. Like, you know, most sports have at least a block where they can go, right, this 3 weeks we've got
recovery.
We've got time to do, you know, big weights, like build muscle, build strength, build power.
You don't have time for that.
And then, you know, then you've got a block of training or whatever it is, and then you've got a block of tournaments. Like, now I just don't.
It's constantly slapping band-aids on everything.
And for me, I think it lessens the tournaments. Like, really, like.
Yeah, I just felt like there were some really key examples of, like, Calderano in particular, but also Fan Jindong as well, where it's like you expect a lot from them. Even Wang Chuchen during and after the Olympics.
It's gonna happen. Like.
Yeah, and everyone's like, oh, they're losing, you know, it's their level's going down, they're out of the game. And it's like, no, nobody can sustain that. Like, to be able to perform at, like, to be that level.
Especially now,
it's every event.
So, like, everyone can play table tennis nowadays. It wasn't like it was like 10, 15 years ago. Like, do you know, I mean, 10, 15, like, if you played a pro tour, like, wasn't that strong. Now, like, obviously with the system how it is, you go to a tournament, you play first match, best of 5 against
champions,
you know, 20 in the world, top 10 in the world, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Actually, I mean, that's another interesting thing as well. How has that changed things for you? Because going into an ITTF World Tour event before, a lot of, like, not the top tier ones, but the mid tier and some of, like, the lower tier ones, you would play a group stage, or you'd play a preliminary draw, and so you were always kind of building up to it. Now it's like, what do you have to do now to go straight in the door and be like, I have to be ready to potentially play someone who's
well, I mean, it just, you know, difficult. Say, like, I mean, you could be ranked, let's say, 15 in the world.
Oh, that'd be nice.
Well, you know, never say never.
I think we can.
I'm trying to be nice. Say you're ranked 15 in the world and you play every tournament in a year. You could feasibly play the number 1 in the world every single tournament that year.
That's true.
Like, what is the point in being ranked 15 in the world then?
Yeah.
Like, you're getting nothing out of it. That's what's frustrating. Like, for me, like, and then I don't know. It's.
I mean, the when you have to travel that far.
Yeah, and you're spending. Okay, some players aren't paying for themselves, you know, association, whatever. But some players are paying for themselves.
Expensive.
So,
yeah, if you are, let's say you're traveling from, like, the UK to Japan or something. How does it change for you now? Do you try and get there a little bit early? I mean, you can't really, can you?
Like, club-wise, you know, you've always got matches with clubs because that's where, you know, most players get their income, and, like, you can't survive on the prize money from the tour. So what do you do? Like, you just
is that kind of something that you're still trying to find the answer for? Is that something that you're trying to figure out of, like, what can I still do to get there? Because I feel like I've seen you play in some of the bigger events where you have gone into the draw and really early on played someone who's tough, but you've been in the match.
Yeah.
But just in those small moments, they make the biggest difference, and you end up not winning the match.
Yeah.
Do you feel that's a lot to do with
just
having that ability to just go 0 to 100, like, on the spot straight away?
Definitely. Like now, especially, like obviously it's been a tough last couple of years or whatever, and just frustrating, really. Like you don't feel like you can get into a tournament at times, and I know it's the same for everyone, but
right, yeah.
I just don't. No, I don't think it's the best for the players, really. For one, probably better for the betting sites. But I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah.
So it is, isn't it? Like, it is. Like you get more upsets and whatever, and that's what they want. But is it better for the players? Probably not. But you know, it is what it is. I'm not going to change it by myself.
Right.
Like, but yeah, and you know, I try to go early, and I think for me now it's more about, you know, looking at the calendar, because obviously before Paris, you know, I kind of felt like, you know, I've got to play every tournament, you know, I need the points, but now it's more like, you know, okay, let's focus on this tournament, see what I can do, and then maybe have like, oh, I've got a block of training here, you know, then focus on this tournament instead of like going, okay, this tournament, straight away there's this tournament I've got to play, you know, I don't want to do that like now, because I don't feel it's beneficial. I don't know, I think they could make it easier on the players by like we used to, you know, we used to have like a, say, like they do in tennis, like you know, you have an Asian tour, you have 3 weeks or 4 weeks and three or four tournaments in Asia, and then you go home, and you have like a Middle Eastern
kind of like
swing.
Regionalized more.
Yeah, so at least like you've not got an event in, you know, you've got a week in China, and then you've got to fly back to Europe.
Right,
You've got
I think this time
and then you
was China Grand Smash, Montpellier, Frankfurt, Japan finals for some of the.
But there was a bit of a break. It was more like,
it was short though.
Yeah,
1 or 2 weeks. 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's more like going, you know, you've got a contender in China, and then you play a contender in Europe, or like
like
just
smaller tournaments with lots of travel.
Like,
yeah. I mean, what's the biggest thing for you now that you're focusing on, training and preparation wise? Like at this point now, to kind of make sure that you can push back into those events now after Paris and capture those results again.
Yeah, I mean, just now, obviously leading up to the end of the year, it's just, again, getting a solid base really, fitness-wise, and then, you know, on the table, you know, just trying to get match sharp really. I feel like, you know, I haven't had enough matches, obviously, one because of my injuries at the start of the year, and then even since Paris, like it's, you know, I've maybe played like 10 matches, which is, for me, I find I get form from, you know, getting a few wins in a row, you know, playing more matches, like at least getting a feeling. So hopefully at the start of the year I can get on a run a little bit, and you know, obviously I think it's Doha at the start of the year, and then
it's a good tournament for you.
Yeah. Yeah, let's hope it is again.
Yeah. All right, great. Yeah, no, I think that kind of went how I was hoping it would, and just seeing like that division. I guess I just want to use your experience to help people focus on just thinking about changing things. Yeah. Because I feel, especially in the US, you see kids go like from age 8 to like 18, and they're just repeating same drills, same patterns, same systems, and there's just not many people think about. They're not very adaptable. Yeah. So hopefully that gives people something to think about.
Hopefully.
Thanks for sharing that.
No worries.
All right. One down.